Josh and Frankie. What a couple of dumb shits.
Hello, Primates! You found Primus Tracks. Congratulations. You know, there are other places to find Primus Tracks if you want to, for whatever reason. We're at Primus Tracks on Instagram and Threads. PrimusTracksPod@gmail.com is the email address. There's also a Facebook page run by somebody that's called Primus Tracks. We got to figure out who that is. In the meantime, I'm Josh, and that guy over there with the forehead is Frankie.
Hi, Josh.
Welcome back, Frankie.
Thank you, Josh.
You're welcome. We are speaking today about Up on the Roof. It's track 10 from your Purple Onion record as we make our way through it. We're already on track 10 for crying out loud. It's track 10. It's Up on the Roof. I think I can safely say right now it's a certified banger, as the kids say. When I think of bangers, I think we got to get somebody on who can help crack the code of bangerisms. We have someone today, Frankie. He's the bassist and vocalist for the band FLAGMAN, which has a new record called Tastes Incredible, and it's available at flagmanband.com, among other places. Sam Stewart, welcome to Primus Tracks.
Thanks for having me, y'all.
Yeah.
I'm ready to decodify the bangerisms.
For those of you not familiar with FLAGMAN, they've got some bangers too, so you need to go check out their business on YouTube. Sam, you got quite an act going there.
Thank you very much.
And I think you guys are going to be touring in the on the East Coast here in the month of July 2024.
That's very true. You're exactly right. We're going to be going up and down the East Coast, I think starting on the 18th. And we will be getting out. You're on the West Coast, I believe.
Will you?
We're trying. I promise. West Coast people, we've been actively scheming for like the last year. It's just, Florida and the West Coast. It's like they're on opposite sides of the country or something.
Oh, man. I mean? Yeah, there is some scheming that goes into that.
It's a little bit of a drive, but it will happen.
All right. I'm looking forward to West Coast FLAGMAN because I definitely need to witness what I've seen on YouTube with my own eyes in the same room. Maybe Frankie can move some chairs around at Primus Tracks Towers. You can do a Mexico City show, too.
It would be an honor to be in the towers.
I've never been in the towers, so if you get in, I'll be asking you.
Yeah, we'll fly you down. I hear there's hundreds of floors.
Oh, so many. It's wild. I wanted to ask you, Sam, as we get to know one another here, about your path to Primus. It's pretty clear by listening to your work with FLAGMAN that Primus is an influence, but the good news is what you're doing is not derivative, but you can hear the influence. So
yeah, absolutely.
Help us chart your path to Primus.
Well, so I wanted to play the drums initially.
I
started playing music like 10, 11 with some buddies of mine, and they had a drum kit, and I got on that and was like, I'm going to play the drums. And I went home and told my parents I wanted to play the drums, and they were like, yeah, we're not going to get a drum kit. But next best thing, you could be the bass player, right? That's still the rhythm section.
Yeah.
And so I started doing that, and then started playing in like a youth group and stuff like that. And I can't remember the kid's name, but he was like, oh, you're into bass. You should check out Primus. He was like, the guy plays a 6-string fretless. It's like, okay. And I watched the My Name is Mud video, and it scared me so bad as like an 11-year-old that I never, it took me like 2 or 3 years to come back to it. But to come back to more, because it was that one and Southbound Pachyderm. And Southbound Pachyderm, I was like, okay, I can handle this. But there was that like something about it that kept you coming back to it. And over the course of middle school, I started to get like, really heavy into it. Bought like first record music I bought with my own money was Pork Soda.
Yeah.
Started collecting the albums. And then I think it was probably I guess it was 2010. It was Oddity Fair was Atlanta, Georgia was the first one. Because we're down in Florida, and so I'd been begging my dad. I was like, they had announced some of those dates with Jay, and I was like, come on, let's go to Bonnaroo. My dad was like, we're not going to Bonnaroo. You're like 13 years old.
Yeah.
He's like, if they come to Atlanta, we can go. And so they announced that Oddity Fair, and I was like, Dad, you got it. You got to take me to Atlanta. And then ever since then, anytime they've been anywhere close to this side of the country, like Atlanta or south, I'm probably there.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's incredible what a reasonable distance to travel for your favorite bands is, and
Oh yeah.
it's clearly it's at least 500 miles or more for most of
It,
us, you know.
oh yeah, and it becomes like, okay, at first it's like it's the first time we got to go see this band. It's on a weekend, whatever, and it is eventually turned into like, hey, I know we just saw them like 6 months ago, but they're gonna be in whatever city a couple hours away. Why don't we just go again? It's a Tuesday night. We could make the drive.
That's
We could
right.
go there and back. Why not?
You're absolutely right. I'll make that drive if I have
Yeah,
to.
of course.
I don't mind one bit. It's you regret it the next day. Well, I mean, when you get up to my age, you start regretting it the next day, but it's okay. It's all right. You
It
can
was
power
worth it in the
through.
end.
You got into the bass. Clearly, Claypool was an influence, and
Yeah.
I'm sure there were many others. What are some of the other guys you were listening to that created the Sam Stew, I guess, of bass?
I like that. Well, there's of course you got the classic like Chili Peppers. I was big into like first stuff I heard as a kid was like Beatles, Nirvana, stuff like that.
Okay.
Stuff my dad had on tapes. System of a Down obviously was a really big one that I was like same kind of thing stumbled onto in the YouTube era of like the Toxicity video and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then of course when you're in middle school and you learn about like drop D tuning, you're like, well, this is the coolest thing I think I've ever seen. So got pretty into that for a while. And then also just a lot of the like Primus world spun me off into other stuff. Like got really into Rollins' band from the Holy Mackerel. What is that one? Delicate Tendrils.
Right.
That I was like, who is this like super intense dude on this album? Had to go listen to the Rollins band stuff. Got really into that. Less talking about Tom Waits turned me on to Tom Waits. Became one of my favorite people.
Yeah.
So it really is a lot of the taste orbits the Primus world. A lot of Mr. Bungle, a lot of Faith No More as well. Those were the big ones that like brought me and my drummer together. He had posted a cover of Squeeze Me Macaroni, and I was like,
oh wow,
you're the first person in the wild I've met that likes Bungle too. So like,
yeah,
we got to hang out.
That's how a lot of serial killers meet each other, I think, is bonding over
it's
Mr.
true.
Bungle.
Yeah, and serial killers and musicians are very similar in that we both use the highway systems of America to get between cities really quickly, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, there's more happening there than I had thought. Wow.
Yeah, we both hang out at truck stops.
Yeah. That's a fine line, isn't it? You really have to stay on your side of it.
Yeah. You got to make sure that you're out there for the right reasons.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing I wanted to ask you was you guys got to open for Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum recently, which is what a fantastic band. How was that?
It was mind-blowing. That was another one when I heard Sleep Is Wrong around the same time of just like something that scared me and made me like shut the computer off as like a 11 or 12-year-old being like, that was scary. I don't know what that was. Never thought that would happen once there was like inklings of them coming back. I was like, what? And then when it finally came down that it was like, oh, they're coming to Florida. Are you interested in playing? I was like, are you? Yes.
You have to ask.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'll do anything. They were fantastic and they were super sweet people. And we were lucky to do both nights here in Florida with them. We did Orlando and Tampa.
Awesome.
Watching a band like that with like they've got like a bicycle wheel with a microphone on it. They're building instruments. Like I don't understand how you even think of those ideas, let alone bring them to fruition.
Right. But hearing, just knowing that you opened for them, and then hearing the other bands you listed, it seems like you might be into some chaotic music, which is always a feather in one's cap for me.
Oh yeah.
Which is why you're here to discuss Up on the Roof, which is its own unique, I'd say, brand of chaos on the Purple Onion record, I suppose. So I'm glad you're here. Yes. We should definitely get into the track. And Frankie, I imagine you have some live history and background on this one, because it's a bit of a storied track in a way.
I have the live history, and a very interesting piece of trivia about the song. Up on the Roof actually predates the Purple Onion record. So this was actually premiered on July 15 at Clutch Cargo's in Pontiac, Michigan. It was performed a few times in 2001 prior to the release of the record. Then it was on heavy rotation all throughout 2002 and 2003 with the Frog Brigade. Then it also became a staple for the Fancy Band. Then the torch was carried over by the Fungi Band. It was also performed by the Les Claypool Rat Brigade. It has also been performed at wine party events. It was also a Do the Twang number on a few occasions. Surprisingly, it was resurrected by the Claypool Lennon Delirium during the 2016 leg of their live history. When they began touring with the first record, this song actually made it onto the set lists quite a few times. Claypool Lennon Delirium would perform Up on the Roof a few times more in 2017 and 2019, and then the song had its triumphant return the last year with the Frog Brigade tour of 2023. So that's a very extensive live history. Now, the thing about Up on the Roof is that I've mentioned this before. I parallel Up on the Roof to those Damn Blue Collar Tweakers in the sense that they are usually the openers. So if it's a Primus show, we know that Tweakers is likely to be an opener on several nights. But if it's an adjacent Les Claypool project, we know that Up on the Roof very well could be the opener for each concert. It's been done quite a while.
Oh, interesting. So this is the Tweakers of the Claypool bands to get him fired up for the show.
It's the Tweakers, yes, of the Les Claypool concerts.
I must not have been paying attention because I didn't realize CLD performed that at all.
Yes, they did back in 2016, and it was fantastic.
Huh.
Now,
Sam, were you aware of that? I mean, I know you follow all the Claypool iterations, so I'm just curious where your head is on that.
I'm trying to remember because I saw their first show, I think, was the Orlando one, and I was there. I was actually going to look up the set list and see what they played that night, because I guess it was 2016, right? Was that when that first record came out?
With Monolith of Phobos.
Yeah, I'm trying to see, because I can't really remember at this point. I do remember, obviously, they did the Tomorrow Never Knows and everything like that. And was still when Money Mark was in the band, too?
That's right. Money Mark was on that first leg, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I want to say I had seen that. I actually, you mentioned Fancy Band. I was watching one. I think it might be from the 5 Gallons of Diesel DVD. I was watching a couple in preparation for today, just of the different eras. I watched one of those, and then it's funny you said it being an opener. I watched 2 or 3 from the Summer of Green tour, and they were all the openers for the individual cities.
Well, there's the pattern. Frankie, do you have info on the background of this one as well, the story behind it?
The inspiration behind Up on the Roof was a close friend of Les called Chris Robertson, nicknamed Don Cristova. And Les has said that he's the closest thing to a Viking that he ever met in his life. Now, the thing about Chris, who, by the way, passed away in January of 2023, he was a contractor. And the inspiration for the song is that he told Les a story about a kid who was working for him at the construction site, but the kid was a tweaker. So he would leave the job, of course, to search for a fix. So Chris decided that in order to keep him on the site, he would keep him on the roof by taking his ladder away.
Hence the lyrics that you hear in this tune. I think that's a really great background on this track. It's just from a conversation Les had with a friend, and that stuck in his head. And that seems to be a pattern too, that he, hears something he likes and files it away, uses it later.
Yeah.
And then Sam, Sam, are you the? Do you write the lyrics for the old FLAGMAN? I like to say FLAGMAN.
I do indeed. Like it's a last name, John H. FLAGMAN, founder of FLAGMAN.
I don't know if that's something that you do too, where you file away. When I was going to be a writer, and I use air quotes because obviously that worked out, I would do that too. You know, somebody would be at a bar, somebody would say something I thought was interesting, or I could put a spin on, and I'd write it down in my little notebook. You know, I don't know if you do something similar.
Absolutely, yeah, that's the classic. You hear just like a little string of words that you're like, oh, that's good. I need to hang on to that. I don't know what I'm going to use it for. Yeah. But I'm going to hang on to it. And then suddenly one day that cadence, you know what I mean? Those words fit into a cadence somewhere and you're like, oh, well, there we go. That's going in a song.
Okay, so I'm not alone there in my notebook of things that will never be used, but phrases. I can look through them and go, oh, I remember when I heard that.
You'll find a spot for it. That's what you hang on to them for.
That's right, eventually. And if you don't, it's all right.
And then that was the spot it was supposed to go in that notebook.
I like that idea. It makes the failure sting less.
Yeah, exactly. That's what life's all about, baby.
And I asked that because of the imagery in this one. We had spoken about the lyrics of Lights in the Sky last time being somewhat generic and brief. Contrasting Lights in the Sky to Up on the Roof, the Roof lyrics are quite brief, but much more developed in terms of imagery and story. And I wonder if it's just because we're back in familiar territory as far as drug addiction goes. But at the same time, he's personifying the Jones, and he's using some, I suppose, imagery that would grab you, as in grabs me by the shorty hairs. Like that's an image that's going to stick. That sort of thing. Or just being up on a roof and losing your ladder. I don't know if that's a universal thing, but it would, I imagine, be pretty lousy to be stuck on a roof if your ladder fell or was taken away from you. So I think there's much more depth, I suppose, to these lyrics than when compared to maybe Lights in the Sky, which, I mean, the word count is eerily similar. But Sam, you are a bass impresario, so maybe you can start us there.
Absolutely. I would love to.
We can't get on the roof if we don't have a foundation, unless, of course, lays that foundation.
Let's get on that roof, baby.
With this bass line. And while you're getting that going, I should run down the credits for this track. Up on the Roof is track 10 from Purple Onion. It checks in at 3 minutes, 37 seconds. We have Les Claypool on bass and vocals, Enor on guitar and backing vocals, Mike D on marimba, Skerrick on fancy sax, and Jay Lane on drums. And I saved Jay for last because I think that is a key ingredient. He is quite important to this track. But Sam, if you can get us started with the bass foundation for this and what it allows everybody else to do, take it away.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of my early favorite Claypool songs. It's stuck in my head, and this like opening rhythm, something he does a lot, and then something I've lifted from him. But I'll go ahead and play it right now. So you're gonna thump onto your 8th fret. I think it's like a C minor thing for any of you music dorks out there. I also could be wrong, but this is what he's playing. So then you get in there. That's always my favorite part.
I would say you nailed it completely. That sounds perfect.
Hell yeah. Great, that's a classic Claypool line, you know. And then once you get into your verse, he just kind of hangs out on that's like thumping on that C. That's your whole verse there. And then he basically hangs out there. Your chorus, he does some classic Claypool strumming on these these bass power chords. So then the only other part I think we've got in the whole song is during that sax solo, he jumps to, I think he goes down to A, and it's like... doing some like ba-da-ba-ba kind of strumming stuff in there.
Yeah.
But there's also, which I wanted to ask y'all, because I think Norwood Fisher, doesn't he play some bass on a couple tracks? It sounds like there's multiple bass tracks going on a couple different times on the Purple Onion record. Because there's a couple moments that I can't pick out what's going on. So
yeah,
that was a question I had for y'all. It's like, how many basses are on this dang thing? Same thing on I think it's Cosmic Highway. It sounds like there's multiple tracks going.
Oh, interesting.
But that might just be me. I don't know. I could be crazy.
Well, you probably have the better ear for it than I do as far as that goes, but that's a good question. I wanted to go back to that main riff that you were playing.
Sure.
I think I saw a lot of open strings and hammer-ons.
Yeah,
so that motion, of course, as a really poor guitar player, I can tell you, it's a nice way to sound good.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things that, you can make something simple sound, like, really hard. It's just waggling your fingers, as Les says.
Yeah. Well, I should point to what you said earlier, which is this a lot of what he's doing is pretty standard Claypoolian bass playing. But at the same time, it does sound like he throws in a couple of curveballs with some of those hammer-ons, and maybe he's just putting a spin on that standard thumping and plucking, but it sounds familiar but fresh at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yes, I was going to point out when Sam broke down the track, well, the riff, I was going to point out that it's similar to Busters of Green Hill in the sense that the main riff is the foundation and it carries over for the duration of the track, and you get a variation during the bridge with a few different notes here and there, right? But essentially the main riff carries the entire tune.
He loves to do that too.
Yeah.
Like just a kind of a variation on a theme with a couple different riffs. I hadn't made that connection with Buzzards. It's funny you said the connection between tweakers, and I know we talked about the meaning of the song earlier, but I watched a video where he explained it, that told that same story. And there's actually the tweaker connection between the two songs. I know that was like 5 minutes ago, but my brain's moving a little slow.
So what I appreciate about what, especially with you modeling it, is because it sounds like a really complicated, involved bass line, but to see it performed right in front of my face, and knowing that there's a lot of hammer-ons, it's funny because he kind of stays in a box. We've talked about that before too. He kind of stays in that box, but it sounds much more complicated. What's the main ingredient to this one? It just seems like to me like you got to have rhythm if you're going to even approach this tune.
That was the thing, like when I was a kid, that always got me, because he has that bouncing thumb the whole time. That rhythm is so driving, you know? And that was the thing that stuck with me, because I was like, how does he do that? And then sing was always the trouble, because then the whole verse, he's got that. And I would always try and do it with the track, and it couldn't wrap my head around it. But as I got older and was able to do it, I think that was, for me, I was like, that's, I think, the sauce there. That combined with obviously him and Jay Lane are such a good rhythm section together, but that kick drum's going, and then the classic Jay Lane hi-hats.
That combo comes back around here. I think McAllister was our first exposure to it on Purple Onion, and then coming back around to it here on Roof. It just screams Lane and Les. You just know it, right? Because he plays with some other drummers on this record and many other records, but there's nothing like that connection. And so I imagine he must have put this riff together and said, I got to get Jay. Yeah.
It's probably just got to feel right, you know?
Yeah. Because this one's pretty involved and pretty driving, and Jay knows what to do with that.
Which you guys have probably covered this on the other episodes. Did Jay not play drums on the whole record? Was it a mix mash of people?
Yeah, he's only on a few tracks. Dean Johnson also drums. Fish Fisher is drumming on a track or two. So
Nice.
there's a lot of people in and out
A lot
of
people
the
in
door
mix.
when it comes to drums. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's a lot of familiarity there in this track. Looking at it 20 years later,
Sure.
as well. I do want to play a portion of the tune, and it is this intro here, Sam. So if I know you didn't play drums very long, Sam, but if you can tell us, having played with many fantastic drummers, I'm sure at this point, what Jay's doing and how that informs just that communication between bass and drums here.
Absolutely.
Jones comes in late at night. He hits with a terrible bite. It don't come knocking on my door. Slink across the greasy floor. I'm going on the roof again. What's
So the first thing I hear is that that hi-hat's almost buried, that closed hi-hat, but tickety 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 tickety, it's just clockwork.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's locked in on that thing the whole time. That's one of my favorites when I know it's Paulo Baldi from Cake live that I saw, I think. And I think also with Claypool Lennon too. I always love watching him play this live because those hi-hats, he's just a machine the whole time. But that's that Jay Lane sauce. He loves his hi-hats.
And he certainly brings it here. It's constant, of course, and it's so funny to me, it being somewhat pushed back in the mix, but it's there, so you still hear that. And he's not playing the rhythm of Les's thump and pluck, but he's doing, he's just playing those constant. I don't know if they're 16th notes or what, but he's just playing that
would be right.
constantly.
I think it'd be 16th notes.
Okay.
And then he's got the kick drum going the whole time too.
Yeah.
To really drive home that. I think that's what locks in really well with Les's. I'll try and do it with one hand. Oh wait, I'm muted. That thump and beat.
Yeah.
You got the kick behind it, just bump, 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. The whole time Les is driving that.
Okay.
And that's like again another classic Claypool thing. That bass is driving forward, and everybody else kind of he's leading the charge, and they're filling the gaps in behind him.
Yeah. This one allows a lot of space again. So Mike D's playing that little melody on the marimba, and that gives a nice counterpoint to what Les is doing. As we know, he's a percussive player, and this track is no different. And so Mike gets to create a bit of a melody. Enor is doing some chunking throughout, and then he gets to really. This is like the one track he really gets to turn on the distortion too during that chorus. And Skerrick is, he's doing Skerrick things, but the structure of this one is interesting because it doesn't really follow your standard song structure. It's verse chorus, and then solo break, reprise, and you're out. That's what's really interesting to me about this structure. Just knowing he's entering this jam world, and I haven't looked at the lengths of the live cuts we're going to listen to. This one feels like it could really be stretched out.
It does get stretched out in a live setting, of course. Everyone has a spot.
So what are we talking? 18-minute versions? I haven't looked, Frankie. I'm kind of scared.
Not that long, but yeah, it is a jam vehicle within reasonable terms.
Thanks for that insight, Sam, on what Les and Jay are doing, because we've talked about it with a lot of people, but every time they're paired, I just marvel at it. So it's really great to hear it again.
Oh, I mean, when you've got that much like history in between two players, it's going to be like they've just done so much together,
Yeah.
that like you just know where they know where they're going together. They share the one brain,
They do. You're right. Yeah, I agree. I wanted to move ahead to that shift after the iterations of verse, chorus, that starts with the Skerrick solo, because there's a couple of interesting things that happen. Of course, Skerrick solo is pretty cool. And then Les does a call down. But what I really like about this transition between Skerrick solo and Mike solo is there's the call down, but that doesn't mean it's completely over. Skerrick goes a little bit beyond the bounds, kind of like not as egregiously as he does in Live Frog Set 1, but he lets it ride just a little bit longer than the call down, and then Mike enters. I wanted to play that part just because it's funny to me. Right there. Love that. That Skerrick just lets it linger. But then Mike comes in, but we also get the call down. And then that's also the part that you mentioned where Les moves down and register. And that just, when he moves down and register, it's a nasty riff to begin with, but it just sounds filthy down there.
Oh yeah. His bass tone, like around this time, especially with like the Frog Brigade, was so like that something. I don't know what it is, a combo of the Ampeg amps he had at the time, but that like original CT 4-string with the horn, like the original one, dude, it just sounds so like, yeah, it sounds nasty, like you said. That's the tone I've been chasing forever.
And we'll never know because it's it was a modified head by CG the Mexican, and he's never going to reveal those secrets, of course. But
and he's got the sauce in his fingers.
It's most of it's right there, right? In that right hand, left hand. And then we get another call down here at the end of Mike's solo into Enor's. Pretty cool fill here after everybody gets their turn. Les does, we get a break here and Les does this. Just that little thing, that slide open string thing. I don't know. You probably know what he's doing, Sam.
Dude, I always have loved those little slidey. He does. He'll do that. He loves doing that with his slap too. I've always loved that part too.
It sounds like you've gotten some inspiration from those little moments over time.
Oh yeah. I've worn all these records out.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're
they're
scouring,
the gifts that keep on giving too. You come back and there's always another little thing that you like listen on a new set of headphones and you're like, oh, I didn't know they were doing that.
Oh, and I suppose you can glean a lot, of course, from live videos, not just what he's playing, but how he's playing it and kind of, approach and tonality and the fingers and everything, right?
Definitely. That's been, for me, that was like I feel like the way I learned the most was just having so much like high quality video on YouTube of like, well, here's a pro shot video and you can just see what his left hand's doing.
Yeah.
So I can just like pause the video and be like, okay, where is his hand?
Yeah. Another thing I noticed in your FLAGMAN videos, live videos, that is you guys play with, of course, a lot of energy, and I wondered if you cribbed that, or if you're just really happy to be up there playing music.
Dude, it's the best thing in the world.
Yeah,
I'm high on life, baby.
And there's so many people that go, playing music live is the greatest thing, and then they stand on stage and look dead.
Yeah, exactly. They really make it look fun, don't they?
Yeah, this guy's having a great time ignoring us, looking at the floor, not moving.
Exactly.
So it's really cool that you put that energy into it, because that, to a degree, you don't take it over the top, but it's really great to communicate that energy physically, I think, to a crowd.
I think the biggest thing we noticed when we started playing shows, especially like heavy music and stuff, was there was so much self-seriousness that it's like it can be hard for the audience to know what to do. You know what I mean? Because it's like, if you're not having fun, they're not having fun, right? Yeah. Which is always something that's attracted me to the Claypool world, is the offbeat sense of humor, and the whimsy at the same time as being, serious subject matter, the kind of an underlying darkness, but kind of a tongue-in-cheek vibe. I always liked that. I always thought that was cooler than the guys that are like, Yeah, we're a band.
Yeah.
All right, cool, man.
Yeah, it's more fun when the guy singing about somebody addicted to meth is wearing a jester's outfit and bouncing around the stage.
Yeah, that's the most fun thing in the world.
Yeah.
It's about a song about a tweaker that kills another guy for stepping on his shoes.
Yeah.
Come on, what's better than that?
Let me get my pig mask on for this. You know?
That's what my brother, because I always would obviously play Primus loud at the house. So I tortured my siblings with it. And my dad and I were the only ones that liked it. My brother described Primus as the elevator ride, the music that plays in the elevator ride down to hell. He goes, we was playing Chili's on Smack, and as the bow comes in, he's like, this is what a little skeleton man is pressing a button.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think that's apt.
And then any of this stuff, he's like, it's like the Claypool Frog Brigade or the Whales and Woe stuff. He described it as it's a frog in a top hat jumping in and out of the mouths of alligators. Okay,
merrily
I can see that too.
Bouncing around, avoiding death.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's great.
It's like, for somebody that doesn't like this, you've kind of got it nailed to to a T of what the visual world you're creating.
He's quite perceptive.
Yeah, I know.
Give him that.
That's what I mean. I think he secretly enjoys it.
Yeah. Good. I guess I should also ask you this. Is this one a banger or a zinger?
I think this one's a banger.
Okay.
I think this one's definitely a banger. I think this is like Frankie said, this is the one when they come out, you hear that at the Frog Brigade shows when they're coming out, and they start into this, like, we're in for a hot night, boys. They're feeling good. And the other thing I'll say about this, as I was listening back through, especially the record, the dynamics on the recording are so good. At that last chorus, up on the roof again, that
Yes.
that moment always kills me. It's so good.
Oh yeah, I had that in my note as they repeat the verse with a twist, and it's that classic stop-start, but they keep the chunkin'. That's great.
Mm-hmm. It's so good. It's like the songwriting on this one, and maybe to your point earlier about like this one versus Lights in the Sky, I feel like the songwriting on this one feels very fleshed out. And maybe that's because, like you said, Frankie, maybe it's because they were debuting it live a little earlier or something. I don't know. It just feels like it's got more, like, I don't know, body to it,
Mm-hmm.
If all the odds and ends feel like they're sorted out. It doesn't feel like they went in with like, oh, let's see what happens,
Yeah.
Like a choice like that, especially. Like, oh, at this point, we're going to stop, and you're going to play that, and then you're going to play that,
Mm-hmm. And
you can hear that.
it reminds me of, say, Tales from the Punch Bowl, which especially the first half of the record, highly structured, and they put a lot of effort into many of those tunes. And much of the second half of the record feels more improvised and off the cuff.
Right.
This entire record feels much more structured and thought out before the record button was pressed.
Right. Like they're sitting on the material for a little bit.
As Frankie told us, they had plenty of time, I suppose, to work some of that out live before cutting those tracks. And that can be very useful, of course, for, I guess, depending on the type of composer you are and how you work best, whether it's sitting at a desk and writing it all out and mixing and matching, or spontaneously playing with somebody and putting it together that way. And I'm sure you've experienced everything in between.
Sure. Yeah. I always find, like, and I think it was on here. Brain talked about a similar thing with some of the tracks for Brown album, how he wished that they had been able to take them out and play them live. I've found that, like, even with some of the Flagman stuff, things we recorded that we were like, it's got to be this way. And then you get 2 or 3 years down the road of playing it live, and there's little things that you go, oh man, if I had the experience I have now, maybe I would have done it a little bit differently, So I think that definitely having that live, like, I don't know, it's like a comedian working out material,
Sure.
right? You get out there and kind of can test out what works on people. I think that can always make a good difference on those tunes,
Yeah, and it certainly seems like this one, and I haven't listened to a lot of Frog Brigade stuff, especially from pre-Purple Onion for a while, but I would love to hear those live renditions to see what was included, what was excised. So this one's a banger, Frankie. Do you agree?
I agree completely. An incredibly compelling number.
We haven't finished the record yet. Frankie, do you want to spoil your top 2 tracks? We know number 1 is Buzzards, but is Up on the Roof in contention for your number 2 track on this record?
No.
Okay, don't say any more, because I'll ask you after Cosmic what your second
Okay.
favorite track on the record is.
Okay.
How about, actually, I should ask you, Sam, about Purple Onion as a whole. It is a dynamic record, has a lot of different facets to it. Where does this track sit for you amongst the entire landscape of it?
I think this one's pretty high up for me. This one's high up in the Claypool pantheon, I think, for me. And just in general, I really like this one. I'm trying to think. Buzzards is also a classic. And then I also have a soft spot for McAllister Part 2. I like that one.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot. And then, come on, Cosmic Highway. There's too many good songs on this album. Why'd they put so many good songs on here?
Spread them out, man.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Come on. Take it easy.
Yeah.
I do, however, I prefer the live Dee's Diner to the... I don't dislike the studio track, but the first version of Dee's Diner I heard was the live one on the Wales and Woe. I think the iTunes edition had like a live in Philadelphia or something.
The bonus track.
That was the first one that I ever heard with the like super long extended bass solo. So then when I came to the album version, I was like, I'm ready for that tasty bass solo, baby. And it didn't happen.
Yeah, it wasn't
That's
there.
okay though. It was for the live cuts. I get it. But yeah, I think this one's up there. This one might be my number 1 for this record.
Right on, man. Well, I'm glad you're here for it.
Oh yeah.
That worked out nicely. We should talk about the lyrics briefly. Frankie shared with us that they were inspired by Chris Robertson, Les's pal, who passed away in early 2023. But once again, these are brief lyrics, and in the 2 verses, we have an AABB rhyme scheme. We have, of course, lots of repetition of the "Please don't take my ladder away, I'm up on the roof again," so that imagery holds. The Jones is being personified as addiction, of course. And what was interesting about the lyrics here is addiction, of course, is an internal mechanism. So the Jones is not crawling across the floor or that sort of thing. It's inside of him, which is what I really appreciate about that first verse. It doesn't crawl across the floor. It's already in my head. It doesn't need to come through the window. And then that verse 2, the shorty hairs rhyme is great. By the way, if you can rhyme shorty hairs with some things, you're doing very well. Frankie, shorty hairs are pubic hairs.
Oh, okay.
I knew you were going to ask. Les hasn't had a buzz cut in a long time, so you got to use your imagination there. But that line, grabs me by the shorty hairs, drags me damn near everywhere. That, once again, is addiction controlling this narrator. So they, and you often hear that people would say, when I was doing that, that wasn't me, that was the addiction, because addiction physically and chemically changes your brain, and you will alter your behavior to get that thing that you're addicted to soothe whatever it happens to be, right? Or to release that serotonin or what, so on and so forth. So addicts really, truly are not themselves when they are in that state. And I think Les does, once again, with very few words, he says a lot. And this, unfortunately, is a topic he knows really well and writes a lot about. And fortunately, he's really good at it. So, the ladder is great. It's the addict's literal way down to go score. But it's not, and he's begging, don't take it away. Because as we, I I can't imagine how awful it is to dry out from something. Fortunately, that's never happened to me. But you see those depictions about how painful it is and how horrendous it is for a body to come out of the physical addiction to something. My goodness, it's horrendous. So I appreciate the metaphor that Les is laying down here.
Like you said about the shorty hairs line, I thought also just like that line is really good because it's like the imagery of someone grabbing you by your shorty hairs is a pretty intimate, right? And so it's kind of this personal thing, right? Like you're talking about the addiction. It's this kind of the intimate nature of something like that, very, and also then like the stigma and all that stuff surrounding it of something that you might try to hide and keep to yourself, because it's like this personal thing that's, like you said, it's inside you. So that's another thing I really appreciate about him is his ability to paint really vivid pictures, like you said, with only a couple words. He's really got a knack for that.
Yeah, and when addiction does grab you by the shorty hairs, you're not pulling away. You're going with it.
Right, exactly. It's going to
that
drag you
hurts.
damn near everywhere.
Yeah, I'm not going to pull away. I know what's going to happen. So that you're right. I appreciate your insight as to it being an intimate thing, because it is. I mean, unless you're in a high school locker room, which I think. Frankie, how do these lyrics strike you?
I must be honest with you. Prior to Les explaining the track, I had no clue what the song was about.
Same.
So it was this kind of mysterious thing near the end of the record with a compelling bass line. That's what the song amounted to for me.
When I first heard this album 20 odd years ago, The Jones, that was my clue. So I knew there was something about addiction happening here because that colloquial phrase has been around for ages at this point. But other than that, it is a bit like Lights in the Sky. It's a bit vague, but it's descriptive enough to really paint us a picture. So
is the lyric "The Jones he likes to call my name"?
Yeah.
Is it okay? So I always heard, like Frankie, I didn't know really what the song is about because I always heard Jonesy likes to call my name is what I thought he said.
Oh, good old Jonesy.
Yeah, so I kind of thought it was like a breath of a salesman kind of vibe of like, I've got this annoying friend that's not like he won't leave me alone. That was kind of always what I thought the tune was about. But then I saw that video today and I was like, oh, it's a Tweaker song.
Yeah. I think I'd rather have addiction grabbing my shorty hairs than Jonesy.
I was going to say that would be one of those friends you have to tell a trusted adult about. I don't think that's not what's supposed to happen.
We've shared our thoughts about the track, and now it's your turn. Yes, it is time for Primates Takes. If you want your opinions on the track up for discussion read on the podcast, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/Primus Tracks. And the universal benefit there is that if I post the thread for the track up for discussion, you get to reply and I'll read your words right here. Whew. I'm getting pretty good at that. I should probably start selling cars on the side. Let's hear from our primates. Primatrons, that is. John Shreve says, my second favorite Claypoolian track ever. Whew. He goes on to say, it scratches itches, has range, and anyone that doesn't know music can recognize how hard it sounds to play. The story behind it blew my mind, and my friends and I thought it was a drug song when it came out and tripped as such. This is the certified heavy banger of the album. Well, there you go. John Shreve says it's a banger, too. Eric in Australia says, this one drives hard, like a roofing nail through drywall. Are they using drywall for roofing material in Australia? That's disturbing. The switch between low and high key sections give it a special flavor. In concert with Lights in the Sky, this is a back-to-back slab of finest Claypool quality. Jordan Kahn, our resident fish expert, says, love this installment of the Tweaker series, the one where meth heads get armed with roofing nails. I hadn't thought about that angle. Keep them up there. And Frankie Brooks destroys our minutes upon minutes of analysis with this. Toaster lists the first known performance of this song in Pontiac, Michigan, and I was there, which is cool because this is my favorite Claypool solo track. I absolutely love the sax solo into the vibe solo into the guitar solo, while Les goes nuts on bass underneath all of it. I'll never grow tired of this one. Ryan Rashawn says, I love the shift midway through as Skerrick Enor and Mike D all solo. Despite all this, it's a relatively compact track that hits just right after lights. And finally, Johnny Perona, the man behind the Primates Takes theme song, says, incredible track. I think it's one of Les's favorites too. He plays it with fancy fungi frogs and the delirium. It's like he read your notes, Frankie.
Yes.
Johnny's paying attention. Thank you, Prime Matrons, for your thoughts. Before we talk about live cuts, Frankie, we haven't done this in a while. I have a cover of Up on the Roof to share.
Interesting.
There aren't that many cover renditions of Claypool solo songs or Frog Brigade songs, but when you have Mike Dillon in tow, you might as well cover a Claypool song. This is La Special with Mike Dillon in Chicago 2021 performing Up on the Roof. Sam, feel free to critique Luke and then at him on Instagram.
I will. I'm going to start. We're going to have a bass battle, Luke. I'm coming for you.
Yeah, brother. Let's hear what these guys do with Up on the Roof.
That I think it's a Hilton bass that he's playing. Sounds so good. Whatever it is, Luke, your bass sounds awesome, dude. Can we talk tone, dude? Can we talk tone?
What do you got on your pedal board, man?
Yeah, bro, send me a picture. I'd like to see that thing.
And that's Rory, of course, playing drums and doing the vocals at the same time. Don't know how that man does it. That's pretty incredible.
That's nuts. When they did Frizzle Fry and he was playing all the Tim Alexander parts.
Oh, that was insane.
What? And doing both of them like so good. It's like, all right.
Yeah.
It must be nice to be talented.
Yeah, incredible stuff. And so they pal around with Mike D from time to time, so they always cajole him into playing Roof or some other tune with them, which is fantastic.
They were just here not too long ago, and I unfortunately missed them. They played right up the street from my house, and a bunch of my friends went, and they said they were amazing. So, guys, you got to come back because I wasn't there. So
I hope you cross paths with them sometime soon, pal. That'd be excellent.
Me too.
All right, now it's time for Frankie's favorite part of the show.
The jam vehicles.
Live cuts.
A jam vehicle.
Live cuts. The jam vehicle. Live cuts.
A jam vehicle.
Live cuts. A true jam vehicle. Live cuts.
A jam vehicle.
Live cuts. The jam vehicle. Live cuts.
What's going on here? Shards of bone in my anus.
Frankie has 4 live cuts for us today. My goodness, we're never getting out of here. This is the Fillmore, San Francisco, 2002. Let's hear how they're roofing it there. Sounded like Roof to me. What'd you hear there, Sam?
Sounds like Roof to me as well. It sounds like they're jamming, baby.
It'll do. This one's 12 minutes long. Let's hear a little bit more. Ooh, I like that solo.
And Frankie, you were right too. It's the opener on New Year's.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to check this show out. I'm on Toasterland now. I got it pulled up.
All right, let's move ahead to. Oh, we're gonna hear near the end of that one too. I mean, it's 12 minutes. You gotta sample more than just a couple parts.
Comes in late at night.
Oh, I love when he does this.
Hits with a terrible bite. It grabs me by the shorty hairs, drags me damn near anywhere. I'm on over again. Watching this fucking dance. I'm on over again. Please don't take my lighter away. Please don't take my lighter away.
Yeah.
Please don't take my lighter. Please don't take my lighter. Please don't take my lighter away.
Good energy on that one. I love that when he drops out of the rhythm of singing and does that old man narrator voice instead. Shorty hairs.
Terrible bite.
That's great. Our next one is Boston, Massachusetts at the Roxy, 2006. Holy smokes.
Fancy.
Let's hear how fancy it truly is, Frankie. Sounds like Roof. Good energy,
Up on
too.
that roof.
I like
Yeah,
that.
I like the stripped back sound too, with the sitar doing the that.
Yeah. Speaking of, I think we're going to get a bit more at Gabby right here. That's a different flavor for Roof.
He likes to do those call and response kind of solos, and for this one, it sounds like he's just kind of noodling around that C minor. They kind of are both doing that C minor, just kind of walking up and down as long as you're staying in that rhythm. Yeah, the interplay between that is super nice, because I think also just the like timbre of the sitar fits really nicely with Les's bass tone.
Yeah. Fancy Band, I think, is one of my favorite iterations, and this is confirming that. Every time I hear Fancy, I'm pretty satisfied. Thanks for that one, Frankie. Let's go to Golden Gate Park, San Francisco, 2016. Different bass tone. Pachyderm. Probably, yeah. Golden Gate Park.
It is. It is.
Yeah, how do you like that Pachyderm, Sam?
I like it a lot. It's nice and punchy. I like the really almost like off the rails sound it has on like Naugahyde, like those early proto ones.
Yeah.
Shoot, what's the track? Tragedies Are Coming. That
Oh,
bass
sure.
tone before he kicks in the warble pedal. That stringy, slinky sound of I remember when that record came out, it's like, oh, he's got a new bass. What's this going to sound like?
Yeah.
And that track specifically. I was like, if it sounds like this, I'm with it, dude.
And of course, it's changed over time. 2016, I think he was really, right around that time, he was really getting them dialed into what it sounds like now.
Yeah.
I think. And of course, that's an audience recording, I think, so you're not getting the full range, but it definitely sounds different.
Yeah.
Let's hear a little bit more from Golden Gate. Oh, this is Pete Drungle, right?
Correct.
Yeah, that's another flavor. I like the keyboards on that one.
Yeah, it's nice. And he kicks in that delay. He got he puts a little delay on there, gets nice and trippy. So my delay is a little bit faster than he's got going, but I always like when Les does that. That's when you know it's about to go off. You hear that delay sprinkle, and you're like, okay, we're tripping out now.
We're going places, yeah, going to
It's
outer
getting
space.
psychedelic, baby.
Our last live cut is from Columbus, Ohio, also 2016. Let's roof it. Frankie, what's the lineup for this one? This sounds great.
2016, you have Les Claypool, Sean Lennon, Paulo Baldi, and Pete Drungle. It is CLD, yeah.
Playing Roof. Wow, it sounds really good. Paulo plays that drum beat really well, and that bass sounds particularly gnarly there.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing as soon as it kicked in. There's something about it. Something about sometimes those audience recordings get it just perfect. You're like, oh, everything sounds like nice and meaty.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I love it when they capture that somehow, some way, just on some little microphones they smuggled in.
Yeah.
The thing about this 2016 Claypool and on Delirium tour is that it was day and night when it came to the keyboard. Pete Drungle was incredibly versatile and he could jam, whereas Money Mark was just sticking to what was played on the record. I mean, he learned those parts, but he couldn't jam. And you can really feel how the show's elevated to a different level when Pete came on board.
Yeah, he certainly brought it in the samples we heard. Thanks for those, Frankie. I might have to check out more CLD playing Roof.
Yep.
So I can say this, Up on the Roof, you can have your ladder back because you've been tracked. Next time, Frankie, the shit has just hit the fan.
It's getting eerie and evil.
We'll have to ward off those spirits. Sam Stewart of FLAGMAN, thank you so much for joining us. Sam is at Salmon Sam Stew on Instagram and FLAGMAN Band on Instagram. And, of course, flagmanband.com for all your FLAGMAN needs.
Hell yeah. Listen to FLAGMAN. Flag Boys for Life. Thanks for having me on, y'all.
Yeah.
An honor to have served Primus Tracks.
Thank you so much for helping us out, man. I appreciate it. And
Anytime.
I also implore everybody to go listen to FLAGMAN. You see that posted around the interweb, and now you know what it means.
Well, it's out there. We're spreading like a virus.
The best gosh darn virus you ever did see. Pretty talented virus, too, if I might add. Thanks a lot, Sam. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
Primates, primatrons, people of Earth, thanks for listening.
Just like
later days.
Willie Mays.
Listen to Flagman.